of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no media present tonight, so we're going to go ahead and start with our Students of the Month. From South Whitley Elementary, nominated by Marla Burkhart, we have Anna Long.
Anna Long is a third grader in my classroom, and she does an outstanding job of being an excellent student in the class. She's very conscientious and gives her personal best in the classroom. She loves to be challenged and perseveres with her work. She's a self-directed learner and follows directions very well. She will often go above and beyond of what's expected. She's very polite and respectful to her peers and adults. She listens, she helps, and she works well with her classmates. She sets an excellent example of being a leader to the students at South Whitley Elementary. Good job, Anna. Thank you.
Congratulations, Anna. From Pearson Elementary, nominated by Madison Moss, we have Ava Baker.
All right, I have the pleasure of awarding this to Ava Baker. She is a positive role model in our classroom. She's always working hard and gives her best effort on all assignments. She loves to participate in class and shows a true love for learning. She's always willing to lend a helping hand to anyone in need. Ava is a kind friend to all her classmates and encourages them to do the right thing. I can always count on Ava to be a good example to others around her. And I know Mrs. Moss was excited, and she's just at home with baby, but she wanted me to come up and speak on her behalf. Way to go.
Congratulations, Ava. From the Whitko Career Academy, nominated by Chris Neely, we have Fisher Stutzman.
Young man I nominated, named Joshua Stutzman. Okay. So Joshua, he goes by the name of Fisher. He has some experience in the trades, which really helped in my class. But right at the beginning of the year, this kid was willing to help kids with a step-by-step process on how to build things, because he already knew. He'd run the saws when I asked him to. He was always willing to step up. Currently, he's, besides helping with the dugouts, he's building an 1860s throwback baseball crate for one of the teachers that plays old-time baseball with no gloves, barehanded, and solid wooden bats. And it's solid cherry, and it's going to look pretty sharp when he's done with it.
That's great. Thank you. From Whitko Junior High, nominated by Mike Hanback, we have Julia Elder.
Julia was nominated by me. It's really an honor to work with students who really care. They give their best all the time. They're always looking to go a little bit above and beyond. And I think when you look at them, you can recognize the fact that
Thank you. For the senior high, also nominated by Mr. Hanbeck, is Ella Yarger.
It's also a pleasure when you have the opportunity to work with a student at multiple grade levels. And I've had Ella before, and so you can see what she was before, and now I get a chance to see her in my ICP class. And I'm looking at someone who is constantly trying as hard as she possibly can. She'll come in the morning and say, I didn't do very well on that, I want to try and do that better. I'll say, sure. I mean, anybody who wants to do that, has that kind of drive, that kind of dedication, I am more than willing to work and go bend over backwards to help. And Ella is that kind of person and is constantly striving to be better. And again, is a wonderful example of what being a student at Whitko is all about. So.
Congratulations, Ella. If our students of the month would stay until we get done with headliners, I'd appreciate that. We next have a special presentation by Mr. Maurer about the ALICE training.
Good evening. You guys hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me. You all have packets up there. You don't have to be happy to give it to you. Just maybe a one piece with an ALICE acronym behind it. Might look something like this. And it might have something like this behind it. If not, I can give you those. All right. Take about 5 minutes of your time tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Last year when I came into this position, approximately in the 1st of January, that week, one of the things that I noticed was our safety plan. And while a lot of hands had touched that safety plan and a lot of practice had gone into that theory, and you could tell a lot of work had been done to it, one of the things that it seemed to be missing was the implementation piece of the practice. So in looking at that a little bit further, it needed to have some sort of practice, some sort of implementation. ALICE had been around for a long time. It had been something that I had practiced at prior employers, something that the students seemed to like, the staff seemed to buy into, and seemed to have quite a bit of success. So I preached that to Mrs. Evans. I asked Mr. Benedict. We tried to get some buy-in from staff as to what some consensus was with that. And then we started the high school as more of a focus group to see if we could have some type of prerequisites involved, and so we could get some staff buy-in before moving to ALICE. The acronym in itself for ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And one of the biggest pieces of that, or one of the newer pieces to that, is the counter piece of it, whereas 10 or 15 years ago, when this was first initiated, mostly in response to Columbine, going back to spring of 1999, so even further back, where you would start with more of, for lack of a better term, a sitting ducks approach. Now it's more, we're going to be proactive towards our life and fight for our lives with any type of threat response. So that is the change, and that is the centerpiece of any type of threat response, which is what they're dubbing that today. Instead of active shooter, the new term is threat response. Because a threat doesn't necessarily have to mean that of a shooter. It could mean anybody that's coming into the building that might want to cause harm to our building. So ALICE is put together with all of those things in mind. It could be any active threat to our school, so anybody that would want to come in with ill intention, okay? So that is the piece that was most intriguing. Not only did it have the threat response for what may be a shooter or somebody that wanted to hurt us, but for any type of threat. So we started to go down that road, but of course we needed to have teacher buy-in. So the first thing that we did, if you'll look down into the timeline, was the step one, is we had in the spring, in early spring of 2022, we had an undercover policeman come in, working with law enforcement, local law enforcement, to kind of give us some kind of evaluation at the high school as to how secure our doors were, would staff notice them, were they recognizable, and then give us feedback. So we allowed that to happen, and boy, did we receive a lot of feedback. So that prerequisite, again, was to get staff to understand that something needed to be done. We as an administrative staff knew something needed to be done, but we wanted the staff to understand where we were also as administrators and the urgency of this. So that next step, then we progressed to what was, and we dubbed, again, for lack of a better term, what's called the shots fired drill with blanks only, where we invited local law enforcement to come in so that staff could hear what the report of a rifle might sound like in the building, so that could then initiate what would be eventually Alice. What that did is that gave an aha moment to staff. Okay, so that was late spring. That gave that aha moment that says, okay, now we need to do something. We heard that, we recognize that, this is real, now what's next? Here comes Alice, which, administrators knew we wanted to introduce that. So, we get with Doug Light, who was an Alice instructor at Wawasee. We invite him and his team into the high school for our focus group to see how that would look. That happened in the fall, that was in October. That went very, very well. That was staff only, where we learned the inner workings of how that might look in the classroom so that we could then move that to what would be a student-led drill. Student-led drill was the next piece of that, and that was actually done this fall on 12/6. So all of those things encompassed together, we started from early spring, we moved into now fall, and we actually have that piece of it together where we look at this as a focus group, as a high school, and say, we think this model is going to work. We think that we can move forward with this. We think that we can take this to the corporation and say, you know what, let's adopt this, let's look at this for a district-wide policy. So that's where we're at. I think Pierce Elementary is working on getting that scheduled right now. I think they have a date set that I'm going to bring up at our next safety meeting, which is this week, and we'll present that information to Mr. Pavarnik and see if that date will work for the corporation. So, and then the final piece of that, once all the buildings get trained, once they all go through Alice for the staff, once they all go through Alice for the student-led drills, and that becomes something that we implement and practice on a regular basis, what then I feel would be the best step would be a final step in a live drill, which we can talk about with, local law enforcement, local EMT, a total wide district drill where we would drill and see what that would look like in some type of real time. So in the event of some type of active response or active threat, we have actually gone through an evacuation drill, and we know how that evacuation and reunification would look. The last thing that we would want to have happen in the event of something like that is we displace kids either to a location such as the elementary or the WCA, and we haven't run through a drill to know how that's going to look. So that's going to be the final piece of that after we get everybody trained. The best part of this, guys, is that the fact that we have something in place for students, the staff is excited about it, the staff has bought into it. We look at this as a matter of, we're making the building safer. And if any of you want to talk with me individually about data on this and what the data shows nationally and what the data shows for the state, schools that have adopted ALICE or this type of training are far less to have an incident where schools that have adopted nothing. So again, reach out to me. I'd happy to give you that data and talk with you about that. The charge for this from Mr. Light and his team has been zero. So he is doing this out of just a moral code, just this ethics that says this is what I do. I'm in law enforcement and I want to see this happen for the schools, and please adopt this because it works. So now the communication pieces of that and some of the other items that are a part of that, like the drop-down blinds for each individual classroom, those are inconsequential from a cost perspective, I feel, compared to the training piece of this, which is zero. There is going to be some cost to this, but I do feel that at the end of this, it'll be minimal compared to the what if, okay, the situation if it were to have happened. So, that's pretty much it as far as my presentation goes. I'm trying to keep it right at 5 minutes. But my next step for this is to look at further into the communication piece of this. So, what are we going to do per classroom? So how do we communicate from office to individual classroom? How do the individual classrooms communicate to classroom in the event? Because that's the missing piece of this. So that is my next step and my next research into this, as well as helping the team get all of this administered and trained. So thank you for your time.
I have
Yeah,
a question.
yeah, please.
I was trained in Alice by Doug Light. I think he's excellent. Has he trained all of our buildings or just at the junior, senior high school?
We've just done junior, senior high school right now. So the next piece of this is to train all the buildings. And at least one of those is hopefully going to be set after our safety meeting this week. And we're going to start presenting that to Mr. Bavarnik to bring back to you to see when these buildings can set their dates. So that's the idea. Hopefully in the next 3 months, all the buildings will be trained.
I think we have tentatively set Pearson Elementary for January 29th. We just have to get the scheduling set, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, and I want to thank you, Mr. Mauer, on your due diligence and your hard work on this. I think you've done incredible, your team has done incredible. I think it's essential, it's important to our district, it's important for our students. It's unfortunate that, I remember when Columbine happened, and it shut the nation, shut the world down. And unfortunately, today, when a school shooting happens, it gets a 24-hour news cycle, and so, if even a 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
And so, it's when you get complacent is when it gets dangerous. So, I'm sorry, if somebody else have more questions, I kind of cut in here, but I just want to take this time to thank you on that. And I know you talked about getting the 2 elementaries done at the same time, and I think our safety meeting, we're going to address that. Is that correct?
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions?
You don't have to tell me where it is, but do we have a rally point?
We do.
Okay.
We do. It's outlined in the safety plan, and that's constantly under revision based on, where the threat response would be. For example, if the threat response was, at the high school, the evacuation point would be at the WCA. If WCA, be at the high school. That's what I'm talking about when we're all done with training and everybody's, had that formal training, then as a corporation, we start drilling those evacuation pieces and what that reunification would look like. So we've drilled it, it's in our heads, we know what to do. Because studies show that we respond to what we drill and what we practice. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to headliners, which is great news from around the district. The FFA and 4-H national competitions. Whitko was recently represented by 2 teams at the National Meats Judging Competition in Denver, Colorado. The team consisting of Anna Sikafus, Cohen Shipper, Lily Sikafus, and Olivia Anderson placed 7th overall in the 4-H Meats Judging Division. And the team consisting of Jordan Leininger, Hannah Thomas, Carly Schroep, and Amy Brown finished 10th overall in the FFA division. Congratulations to these students. The Old Cabin. If you have spent any time on our junior senior high school campus, you will likely notice the log cabin that sits just to the east of the school building. The cabin was a labor of love built by hand in 1976 by former biology teacher Luke Hunt and many of his students. A successful fundraising effort has been completed to breathe new life into the old cabin. Plans include re-roofing the north side of the cabin and a commemorative plaque that tells the cabin's story. One goal is to be able to open the cabin up for use by teachers to assist in educating our students. And finally, we have some scholastic art recognition here at Whitko. 8 of our art students won 9 honorable mentions, 5 silver keys, and to continue Whitko's outstanding representation in the Scholastic Art Contest, a National Gold Key Award for a total of 15 awards this year. Justine Oken, a junior, won 5 regional nods with a silver key and 4 honorable mentions. Abby Frank received the coveted gold key and a silver key. Their work is on exhibition at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art from February 11th to April 6th. I would encourage everyone to get out there and see that. Thank you for staying. If students of the month want to leave, you're welcome to do so.
Mrs. Arnold, I wanted to circle back to the cabin.
Yes.
It appears that we're going to possibly have some maple syrup activity happening there. Mr. Worcester, can you talk a little bit about that possibility?
Yes, Mr. Hunt has an interest in doing a program there to work with the school in developing, boiling down some sap. So I think he's going to contact Rick Bollinger, and is heavily involved with maple syrup in the area, and possibly a teacher or two. So
Man, that'd be great. Thank you.
That's exciting. We have a report from the Strategic Plan Goals Committee. The committee consists of Allison Kellogg and Barry Singray, as well as Abby Sperlin, Sandra Weaver, and Tim Nussbaum.
This is the final report of our strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan committees.
So, as was stated, Mary and I are the co-chairs. Abby Sperlin has been walking alongside of us and contributing greatly to this as well. And we had some advisement from Tim Nussbaum of Bowen Center at the very beginning, where he really put us on the right foot and kind of helped us take off on where we really wanted to focus on this. So our priorities, if you look on the foundational statements of the strategic plan, you'll notice that the priorities that we focused on for this proposal is priority number 2, which is recruit and retain dedicated and qualified staff and provide a strong support system. Priority 3, which is market our strengths so students and families purposefully choose to attend our schools. And priority 5, which is expand and strengthen our extracurricular programs. So our goal as a committee is to develop a Whitko brand that markets our strengths. So how it fits into the priorities is that we're going to get our name out there and brag on ourselves a lot, and so that the community knows who we are and what we stand for, and it will hopefully attract students and staff alike to want to be a Whitko Wildcat, and it'll make our current staff and students proud to be a Whitko Wildcat, and they'll stay here, as well as getting our brand out there, and just so the state knows the great things that we're doing. Because we talk about it a lot in the board meetings, but I feel like the state as a whole aren't aware of the great things happening here.
Good evening. Our committee focused on 2 main areas with our branding focus. First, we wanted to create an image and slogan that we felt like would be easily recognized by staff, students, and community members as the Whitko brand. Secondly, we also wanted to increase this Whitko branding throughout each campus by utilizing the Whitko Wildcat logo and a standard Whitko font, something that can be recognized by all our students throughout all our buildings, and just feel like we're kind of pushing everyone in the same direction towards what's currently at our high school and the corporation level. A few image and branding considerations that we've discussed so far with our group is rebranding using the Whitko Wildcat as our main logo for the corporation and each individual school. We also discussed replacing the current W logo on a corporate level with the Whitko Wildcat, and then also adopting a font that is consistently used corporation-wide, whether that's on printed materials or email headers, just to kind of get a little bit of a consistency across the board. We've also discussed quite a bit about expanding or utilizing the media presence, starting with social media. This is a free service that can hit a wide range of people and audience. This provides a simple way to sell our story and control a narrative. Sometimes I feel like we know what's going on at Whitko. We know the great things that our schools are doing, our classrooms, our clubs, our students, but the outside maybe doesn't see that. And, you know, perhaps neighboring districts or neighboring clubs or neighboring activities, they sort of maybe leave us a little short. And I think that we could utilize this, or our group discussed utilizing social media to sell that a little more. Just simple things like providing weekly or monthly schedules of activities, updates, results from events, exciting things that are happening throughout the elementaries, middle schools, and so on, just to kind of constantly be giving feedback of what's going on in our Also expanding our media exposure through the newspapers and other local media outlets. Similar to social media, just finding ways, maybe creating a model where, you know, this is when we post, this is when we send this out to newspapers, this is when we're going to have maybe the news channel come in, perhaps using the radio to do some type of advertisement, and just broadening, sort of like we did with the billboards. Maybe broadening and spreading that out a little bit, and using things like the radio to expand our promotions.
Since I began on staff, I have talked a lot about, from this podium, about having unity within our district and having consistency across the board. What I want done at the high school, I want it done on our Pearson campus, and I want done on our South Whitley campus. I want everything to be uniform. And so as a group, we discussed uniformity in our name. And so we have Pearson Elementary, South Whitley Elementary, Whitko Junior Senior High, and the Whitko Career Academy. And I've kind of snuck this language in since the beginning of the school year this year, where I talk about our Pearson campus. I talk about our South Whitley campus. And so one of the considerations is a possible name change district-wide, where we all become Whitko Wildcats. So we have Whitko Elementary, our Pearson campus, Whitko Elementary, South Whitley campus, Whitko Junior Senior High, and our Whitko Career Academy. So everything is uniform, everything is under the same name. And going back to the logo, where we all are Wildcats. So we have Whitko Elementary, Pearson campus, Wildcats. Whitko Elementary, South Whitley campus, Wildcats. So it's just a uniform brand. So it's not like, okay, are you a Cub? Are you a Bulldog? Are you a Wildcat? We all are Wildcats. And so just having that uniformity across the board.
Any questions?
I like that, putting it all together.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the committees that gave their presentations at various school board meetings in the past for their hard work for our 5-year strategic plan. Our next steps in that is I'll bring all those synopses of those together at a future work session to discuss next steps in our strategic plan. But we are way down the road with that and doing quite well.
Thank you. We're going to move on to principal and director reports, and we're going to start tonight with Chris Evans with the TAP program and curriculum.
Thank you very much for giving me time. First of all, I want to jump on that marketing. One of the things that I have been doing is I have my own Twitter account, but anytime anything happens with TAP or NIT, I automatically link it to NIT. And our specialist, Stacy, will do the same. So if I'm sitting in a cluster, I'll take pictures, and then I throw it out on my Twitter, hashtag NIT at Whitko Community, and that gets spread around the nation because NIT is the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. And so I've been working on that, and one of my push is for the next while is to make sure that, since I can't be everywhere all at the same time, anytime someone is sitting in a leadership meeting or a cluster or our training, for them to take their own picture, and if they don't have their own Twitter account, whether it's linking it to the corporations or sending it to me, then I can put it out. And then that gets our name out there. I've had, from the last training that I sent pictures out, I've had a number of people from around the country pick that up and retweet that so that NIT can be seen as alive and well at the Whitko campuses, whatever you're going to call them. Some of the things that I have up and coming, I wanted to let you know that it is my responsibility to go through the principal standard rubric. It was with the training. I've completed Pearson. I've also completed the Career Academy with Mr. Benedict, and I will be working with Mrs. Evans this Friday. Mr. Maurer and Mr. Holzapfel have not yet been trained, but we're working on something so that I can work with them. And then I will be meeting with Mr. Pavarnik about mine, since I figure I should set the same goals as I'm or as we are asking for the administrators to do. Our evaluations will end, our second cycle will end on the 10th of February, and we'll be able to compile a list of those so that we can see our teacher effectiveness. I didn't realize I would get the Lexile levels. I hope you have a copy of those. So that's why I actually wrote February 13th, the next board meeting, but due to the craftiness and speed of Ms. Evans in putting it together, she and the teams at the two elementaries have compiled this, and she's put it in a easily readable document. So there are a number of slides, but I've only given you the Lexile level since I've spoken about that a number of times. As you can see, this is a breakdown. Lexiles, we take it from our NWEA scores. These are fall scores, so these are a good benchmark at the beginning of the school year. And unfortunately, it is, as I portrayed it to you a while back, where the majority of our students from K through 9 are reading at a third and second grade level. Now, Lexile again is not the end-all be-all. It is a gauge that we can use that will go from younger students up to as high as the students being tested for NWA, which this year is 9th grade. Ms. Evans asked if we could extend it to 9th grade, and that was approved. We are finishing NWEA this week, so we will have the winter benchmark. The Lexile calculations will begin all over again. So hopefully, I wrote the date of the February board meeting. By the February board meeting, I should have a second graph just like this that you'll be able to compare to see, here's how the students started in the beginning of the year, here's how they have performed through this time. I usually say that NWA, there's a large growth between the fall and winter benchmark. That is the power of teaching. It is getting the students who have dealt with summer regression, getting them back into the line of school and thinking, and then the assessment shows that power. So we are looking for some significant gains and also movement. This is what is called a positively skewed. Like if you think of a bell curve, even though it's not positive, it is skewed that direction. So we are looking for that bell curve to move as a high point from second, third grade, more toward a realistic reading level by grades. That leads me right into our reading committee, which we had our last meeting January 10th. At that meeting, what we ended up doing was looking at the rubric that we created the meeting prior. Teachers went out into their schools, gathered information from the rest of the staff, brought that back, and we created a list of what we call absolutes. We are looking for a program, and these are the absolute things we must have in that program. As was stated, we are using Reading Street, Fontes, and Pinnell, and a number of other supplementary type of programs that are obviously, according to this chart, not producing what we are needing in the corporation. So the goal now is to take a list of priorities and the absolutes in the rubric, send those out to the different vendors, and whoever can comply with as many of those as possible, we invite them in, and they will make their presentations to the committee through the process of elimination of what they can give us. We will get dollar amounts from them. Simple things like professional development. Typical that we adopt something and then there's no training on it. So we are looking for things like that. Are there strategic plans so that we can continue to move the kids forward who are on grade level? Are there plans to bring children who are struggling up? Are there plans to push those who are already reading at or above grade levels? And of course, all the supports that are built into those. And the final thing I have, as you can see, we're also running up against testing at this time. So we're trying to avoid grade 3 I Learn testing because we have some people that support that testing on our committee, so we do not want to pull them out of the schools while that testing is going on to give the children the best opportunity to score well. And then, of course, we're going to jump right into I Learn testing. We don't mess with that. As I said, NWA data should be compiled by the next board meeting, February 13th, and I will be able to have this updated chart to you at that time. I just want to briefly go over the chart. Obviously, you can see it is color-coded. It does reflect without putting percentages on it. If you remember, the percentage that I've left on my board report is the 90-10. 90% of students are not reading at or above grade level, and 10% are. And again, Lexile is not the gold standard. It is something that we can use that will cover the students we have across the board. It is not PSAT, SAT, it is not Fontes and Pinnell benchmarking. It is something that anybody who takes NWA, we can boil it down to a single score. There are ranges, and we erred on the side of caution. So if there is a 100-point range and a child scores in that, we looked at the very bottom of that range. So the goal is, even though it is looking at it in a negative way, it is also looking at it to get the most growth out of it once we score our second round of benchmark testing, which again ends this Friday. So it is kind of a bleak picture. The hope is that when I'm standing here in 1 month, I will be able to show you something that is much more positive.
Quick question, our RIT scores for NWEA, were they similar to this then? Would
I
you
did
say?
not do RIT scores.
Okay.
And these were K through 9?
Yes. Now, obviously, you can look at kindergarten, and the younger ones, there's not a lot of reading going on in kindergarten. So there are other ways of assessment, things like that. So that's why I look mainly 1 through 9, because there are first graders who are working on that developmental reading, just like developmental writing. By the time they hit second, third grade, if you remember, that's learning to read, reading to learn. And that's where we're struggling.
And if I were to add up all of the, say, the red column, the blue column, they would all come to 100, right? That's how these bars come to 100.
It will come to the number of students who are in those categories.
Okay. So then, let's say to the far right, I see a little red line there under 11, 12. Is
Correct.
that saying that you have at least one student at South Whitley Elementary that's reading at an 11 or 12th grade level? Is that what that is? Is that how I'm?
That's what it means.
Okay.
Right. That's the kind of student who, no matter what we do, they will be successful.
And then likewise then, if you look at third grade level with the blue line, we're looking at about 20, let's call it 25. That's the number of students that are reading from the high school, they're reading at a third grade level? Is that how that?
Actually, it's in the third grade level, when you look at blue, you can see 50 students to the left. So it's I would say probably 55 students that are reading at a third grade level. But, oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the,
I was looking at the percentage of students, I guess. I was trying to figure out how to read that.
right, so the number of students, like if you were looking at the high school, the number of students, there's probably 25 students at the high school reading at a 7th grade level. Between 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students.
Okay.
And we are testing through 9th grade? or 10th grade?
We did that testing this year. NWA only went into 8th grade. And Ms. Evans asked just so we can get a broader range of those students, if we could push that to 9th grade, and this year we did. Is there anything else?
So what you're saying is, like under the third grade, it's 25% of the total, so 25% of the students, and that's how you come up with 55?
Correct.
Okay, got you.
It's a pretty bleak picture, but that's one of the reasons the curriculum committee is focused on reading it and stuff.
Is this pretty common across the board in all schools?
No.
No?
No. But, again, I look at it as, I believe the teachers are doing the best they possibly can. We have broken tools. Our goal is to get a better tool, and then to train those teachers on how to use that tool, which will be our new curriculum, and then we should see the natural progression of the students doing better, as well as supporting the higher learners and really bolstering up those students who are struggling in this time.
I appreciate your willingness to discuss data when even if it's not great news.
It's not pleasant, but the goal is to make it that way so that you can see the growth of what the teachers are actually doing in their classroom. Thank you so much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Evans? That's fast. No, what I'd like to say is thank you for your hard work on diving into this data and all this stuff. I know it's your expertise, but it is confusing. There is a lot to unpack.
Yes.
And I agree with Mr. Studebaker, it's hard to stand down there, but admirable, it's what this district needs. The board and the district, they need to hear truth and where this district is. And even though it's not common, we aren't by far not alone in this.
No.
The difference is, how do you tackle it? What do you do with it? And we're putting together a very aggressive, proactive plan that's tied into our strategic plan and to tackle it, and we will bring this forward.
Absolutely.
That's a long way to ask this. You're going to have more information in February. I would like you to plan to be at, if you would, if the board would like, could you come to the February work session so we could do a little bit deeper dive into this to kind of understand, kind of unpack it and understand where this data comes from, how you thread, and not only the big thing with data is not only how you read data, but how you use it.
Right.
And I think that's the key to it. And I think the key to a successful data-driven instructional program, well, I know the key is not only how you use it, but also facilitating our teachers and how to use it in their classroom with individual students for remedial purposes to start to build up that reading level. So if you could plan to come, and I'll work with you on that date and stuff, and if you could plan to come to that, and if the board's okay with that, at that work session, and so we can kind of do a little bit deeper dive on that.
Absolutely. And I'll have the updated data by that time. I also want to kind of give a shout out. Ms. Evans is the one, if you remember, I said she did her instructional leadership team presentation and did the lifestyle levels, and I asked her to move to the 2 elementary schools and lead their instructional leadership teams. She has done that. She did South Whitley, and she just recently did Pearson. That's how she was able to gather all of that data together, so I really appreciate the work that she has done, and it is just more that we can use to show where we are and where we're going, and then create that plan on how to get there. And I think we have a very powerful curriculum committee, and they are going to move us in that direction.
Great. Can't fix a problem until you identify it.
Yes, that's what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lane from Pearson Elementary.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I want to say we're going to kind of piggyback right off of that. So at Pearson Elementary School, we've been increasing the amount of small group reading instruction based on student need, based on where they're reading right now to where we need to get them to. In our learning walk, we increased that small group reading instruction by 60% from the beginning of the process to the end of the process. So that is phenomenal. We also saw a 52% increase in before, during, and after reading instruction components. So what do you do with students before you read the text? What are you doing while you're reading the text? And what do you do after you've read the text and now showing some comprehension and understanding of the text? So we saw a 52% increase in that, and that's all to go to the dedication and time and energy by our ILT as well as our classroom teachers, because they are blood, sweat, and tears going into kids and meeting them where they're at and getting them to where they need to go. In our December meetings, we updated our reading levels from our Fontes Fidel benchmark. It's just another data point. It coincides mostly with Lexile levels, and we will update our NWA scores on our data wall that all teachers have, and it was really nice to see those students kind of shifting to more advanced levels, and that's a rewarding and exciting for our teachers and our students. We are bringing back our popcorn sale. So it's actually student-driven, which is fabulous. We have some 6th grade students, and they're just excited to give to our community, our school community, and they are spearheading that popcorn project, and I'm going to let them roll with it. Pearson also has a fabulous problem. We are increasing our enrollment daily, we have had 12 new students that have enrolled in Pearson Elementary in the 2023 calendar year, so that's within the last 6 days. And we've got about 3 to 5 more students that are in the enrollment process currently. So that is a great challenge to have, and we are excited and welcoming all of those. That brings our total building enrollment right now. We're just a little bit above 400, so we're at 402 from pre-K through 6th grade. So that's great. We have our music program coming on February 9th. We'll have our kindergarten and 1st grade students singing that evening. Again, February 9th, 6:30 p.m. All are welcome. And then we have our awards programs coming up in the very near future to recognize honor roll and citizenship and students of the month for our entire student body. So that's fabulous, and we're excited for that. Any questions?
Thank you. Mr. Hallsoppel from South Willie Elementary.
So I want to highlight one thing that has already happened, and that's popcorn. The PTO has been selling popcorn where kids could buy popcorn and a juice for $1. And one morning, I got a call that we had somebody who wanted to donate so that every kid in our school could have popcorn and juice for the rest of the school year. So that was really cool. I said I wasn't sure how much that was going to be. It could be a couple $100s. It ended up being $1,303 or something. So, and they wanted to be anonymous, which was really cool. It was a parent of some of our kids. Future things. We are working on the Alice drill also when our time slot happens. I was fortunate to be at the high school when we started the Alice drill, when we went through that in the classroom. The staff went through that, and it's a very important, powerful piece that we need to have at the elementary. CPI is our nonviolent crisis intervention, which, because of South Whitley, and I believe Pearson does also, we have an ED classroom. We want to make sure that we're de-escalating any situation so that it doesn't become violent. When students become escalated, we can help calm them down. And it works for our emotional classroom, but also all of our students. So we want to keep working with all of our staff. And one of the things we're going to do is continue to train on that so that when we have, there are techniques that we use if we need to restrain or how we work with students, that we're practicing that. Like Mr. Maurer said, we have to build those habits so that when it happens and in the moment, we're not reverting to what we what we did previously, but what we've learned to do. And the other piece that we're doing relates to what Mr. Evans was talking about, was data to use to drive our instruction. So at South Whitley, we're going to be working at developing data cards, data wall that we can use to track our students, to see how they're doing. And we use that not as much to track them, but to inform our instruction on how we're improving their learning. Because as you saw in those reading levels, I take that very seriously, and we have to, because we are serving our community, that we are improving that. So we're going to continue to work on that.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Evans from Whitko Junior Senior High.
Good evening. I would like to highlight a couple of new things that we're starting at the junior senior high school. The first is a student advisory committee. I hand-selected 2 students from each grade level to give me input on ways that we can improve the school. And a couple of them said, "Are you sure you want me to be honest?" I said, "Absolutely." So I have a very diverse group of students that are going to help me. I'm going to run ideas by them. If they have some ideas and they've already come up with some, just trying to get some more student involvement, as well as we can try everything we want, but we need kids to be on board with us. So we just started that, and they're excited to begin. The next thing that we're doing at the junior senior high school and the academy is for our staff. We know it's the time of year when it can get a little stressful. So we are doing a friendly competition between staff members where they track how many minutes they exercise or relax, do something for their mind, and we're doing a competition. So the winner of that will get a gift card, as well as everyone who met their goal. Their names will be drawn, and we will draw a winner for a gift card there too. So I had quite a lot of of teachers respond to the survey that I sent out. And so there's excitement there. And then we're going to also be providing activities for them to do. So if any of you want in, I can get you in. So hopefully they'll enjoy it. We have our WIDA testing continuing. Our ILT group has been meeting one-on-one with all sophomores to go over their PSAT data. So the goal is to have some kind of data for each grade level. And we've been doing one-on-one conferencing. We're about halfway through. We should be able to finish that up in the next 2 weeks. It's really interesting to hear the kids, when you ask them, why don't you think it was a strength? Some of the input they're giving us is phenomenal. Our teachers are going to appreciate hearing it. So we're doing that, and then I will have ASVAB data analyzed for you guys so that we can kind of see where we are with just meeting those averages nationwide. So I will have that next.
Thank you. I'd just like to mention, I really like the Student Advisory Committee. When I first came on the board, I think I had recently had 2 kids graduate, and one of the things I talked to the superintendent about then was somehow we need to collect that data. We need to get some exit interviews or something, and it never really got off the ground, but this is even better that you're using students that are still in the program, still in the school, because to me, we're a service provider and they're our customer, and we need to have the voice of the customer. And that will help a lot of things, from culture to attitude to enrollment to who knows what they can come up with. So hats off to that. I think that's great. Thank you.
It's a little dangerous, especially when they ask me for the 5th time, are you sure you want me to be honest? Yes. So I'll let you guys kind of know as we hear things from them, and it should be fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Benedict from the Whitko Career Academy.
Good evening tonight. First of all, I want to touch about our 7th grade students. I want to welcome them to the academy. They're out here for the 2nd semester of their ag class and their college and careers class, so they're kind of getting settled into their routine of how the academy works and where they're supposed to go. So excited to have them here. Again, I know we said in headliners, but we're going to congratulate Mr. Dice and his 4-H and FFA students and the job they did at the National Meat Judging Contest in Denver. Our freshman students, all of our freshman students completing semester 1, all the courses that they did were project-based learning courses, so that box 2 is been checked off for them for their graduation requirements. Our teachers will be working on those forms to get sent in to Mrs. Whiteleather and Mrs. Cooper at the guidance, so that goes into their permanent file, so they know they have that checked off. I want to thank our teachers, Mr. Dice, Mr. Doms, Mr. Neely, Miss Lindsay, and Miss Penrod for all their work in that project-based learning that they do in our freshman academies. So excited about that opportunity. We do have, at the end of the month, we are going to bring our juniors and sophomores that are currently at the academy to get them signed up for whatever program they want to continue to stay in. They're going to go 2nd year in a program or 3rd year in a program, or if they want to change programs at that particular time, since they've been out here and seen the drill. The first week of February 2nd, we're going to bring the 39 juniors and sophomores that did not attend the academy this year out, so they can take a tour of the building and go through all the different programs that we have to offer. So again, from the sophomore class this year and the junior class, we have 39 students that aren't attending the academy. So we'll bring them out to make sure that they get through that rotation to see if there's something that they can maybe fit in their schedule for the upcoming year. And then the 2nd week of February, then we will take our freshman students, take them through the entire tour of each one of the programs. And then if I'm a skilled trades kid, I'm going to decide, do I really want to go the construction path? Do I want machining? Do I want welding? Or what specific program do I want to go into? I got that general knowledge my freshman year. What specific program do I want to go into for the next year and get my schedule lined up for that? So that's upcoming here at the end of the month and the beginning of February. And then I know at the end of the last meeting, I told you I'd have some numbers from first semester for the Apex program and the alternative school. Alternative ed, we had 88 credits that were earned for our alternative students, and excited about the opportunity of those guys to actually meet those graduation requirements to be able to get that accomplished. And then we had 80 credits earned just in our credit recovery and Apex program for our virtual students. Any questions?
Thank you.
Apex is being bought out by another company, is that correct?
Edmonton, yes, and we have a trial pilot program that's going on right now
Yes.
with about 10 students that are utilizing that in the 2nd semester. Edmonton is a little bit more of they have online teachers, online staff they can get help from. It's more of an interactive thing with the students, so the student knows that there's going to be a math teacher that's available from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock on whatever day that is, that they can go in and get that help if they want that for math. So we're making a trial program for our last semester here that will lead us into whether we're going to continue with Edmonton or going to Apex, whatever that may be for that next school year, because that contract is up.
So Apex is
Apex
not
is being
going
bought
away?
out by Edmonton.
Okay.
And so either we're going to stay with Edmonton/Apex, whatever we want to call it, or we're going to search out a different
So they
entity
offer
to be
two
able-
programs now?
Correct.
basically. Okay.
Yes,
So we have to decide which one.
Correct, exactly. So we do have that trial pilot program going on. We've met with Edmonton about 5 different times, I think, with our staff, just trying to kind of figure out which way we want to go. And we wanted to hit them hard with, we want a pilot here to kind of see exactly what this looks like and what that's going to be able to offer for us, and if this is the best avenue for us to maybe get our homeschool students to maybe have us be their provider, and also be able to have an opportunity for them to get our teachers, our current teachers, to be their office hours so they can get help with whatever it is that they need to do with their homeschool student as well.
So if the Edmonton program is 80% of what they presented to be, it's going to be very exciting. And I'm very optimistic of it. Mrs. Evans has been working diligently. She's got numerous students ready to sign on. I believe we just finalized the purchase order on that today, Mr. Leininger, at Menem. So we've signed a contract a couple of weeks ago, just before the break. So that's moving forward, and it's pretty exciting. The homeschool element of that's going to be exciting.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As well as going to be our expulsion program. In lieu of expulsion, they can continue in with their studies with our teachers.
Mr. Singgrave, athletics?
Good evening again. Thank you for having me here to discuss athletic updates. Starting with our facilities, we will be installing new wall padding in the main gym in the next 3 to 5 weeks. In relation to the branding we talked about earlier, the new padding will feature our Wildcat logo and the new Whitko, or our Whitko Wildcat font as well. I want to thank Winning Edge and Lex Little Construction as they've sponsored this project. Winter sports updates. Junior high wrestling has begun and will have their first match on February 9th. 6th grade girls basketball has also begun practicing and will have their first game on January 30th. All our winter sports, 6th through 12th grade, are now underway, so spring's just around the corner. Athletic development, we have over 75 athletes participating in strength and conditioning class, and we will be giving them a Whitko Athletics t-shirt and trying to build that pride in working hard and working together. Upcoming events, we have a few introduction nights coming up this Friday. Boys travel basketball will be recognized during the varsity basketball game halftime. January 27th, we will recognize our junior high girls basketball team during the halftime of the varsity game. Also on January 27th, we will have our girls basketball senior night. And February 4th, we will do our youth cheer introduction night. And then February 11th will be our boys basketball senior night. So a lot going on between now and our next board meeting. So hopefully we see you out at some of those events. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, on the weight training, could you explain, it sounds like you figured out a way to open some opportunities for people to get some weight training that may not have weightlifting class, like study hall or something. I think my daughter's participating in that.
Yep.
Could you expand on it a little bit? That was kind of exciting to hear.
So at the high school level, I've really just tried to work at looking through our athletic rosters, calling those students down, discussing the importance of lifting weights, and really the weightlifting program. Yes, it's getting bigger, stronger, and faster, making you a better athlete, but it's also expanding our athletic culture. I encourage our teachers to treat that sort of like a team. I want them coming together as a group, working hard together, developing teamwork and common language, and breaking out at the end of class. So really, it's lifting, it's getting stronger, but it's also building that athletic culture. And then, so I probably called down about 30 or 35 athletes, talked to them about that, and the majority of them were, willing, and some of them I could say were probably excited to maybe have that conversation and understand the importance of it moving forward in their athletic career. And then I think what you're referencing is we're in the beginning stages of a junior high athletic development class as well, where we will have boys and girls alternating days working on athletic development, speed and agility, strength and conditioning, lateral movements, all different types of things. And again, like today we talked about the importance of, not worrying about where you're at now, but understanding getting better every day and focusing on getting better every day. So having those conversations, working together, and then obviously working on our athletic development. The goal is over time to develop better athletes and also better student athletes. Big concentration in the junior high is also grades. So they will do a grade check 2 days a week and have a study hall session. And if they're not passing all their classes, they will continue to have that study hall session and not participate with the athletic development that week. So trying to make it a little bit of a
Incentive a little bit.
Incentive, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Snavely with Director of Operations.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Just some quick things in transportation. We had a staff change. Melissa Smith stepped down from her special needs contracted position, and she is still going to stay on as sub, but she had a new grandbaby that she's going to start caring for, so she wanted to make that change. Brad Nessel has taken over her route, so we're working hard to get him trained, and just she does a lot of stuff all over the district. She's all over from one end to the other, so it is a challenge to find somebody that one is willing to take that on, and two, just to learn that route, it's a struggle. Fuel pumps, we're getting new fuel pumps. We are just pretty much waiting for the dispensers. They're on back order. They should be here the end of January, the 1st of February. We're going to keep our fingers crossed for those. Moving over to maintenance, South Whitley Elementary got a new boiler. It was up and running just in time for that really cold weather, which we were very thankful for. Rooms 411 and 412 here at the academy were completed, and we moved the criminal justice and one of the special ed rooms down to those, so that cleared up 2 rooms in the little cat's hallway. So we're going to start focusing on the direction for those 2 rooms next. This week, we're starting bleacher repairs at all of the buildings. There was an assessment done last summer, and they came back with some repairs that needed to be done, so they'll be in each one of the buildings this week. We also have purchased a new side-by-side from Moore Farm Store. That will be used mostly for athletics, to take care of the fields and to get everything ready, and custodians will also use it for some of the grounds work as well. Moving over to the safety grant, we just submitted our program report for the first quarter. That went smoother than I had anticipated. And we will be submitting the fiscal report the end of January.
Good.
Any questions?
You are busy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Klein.
Good evening. The technology department is working on a handful of things that will be helping us take care of some speed issues that we've been running into. We are also working on the branching minds implementation for MTSS. We're also evaluating our existing implementations on things like our current phone system, camera system, et cetera, making sure that we haven't missed any little bells or things that we need to be taken care of. And we are also looking into updating some of the 3D printers that will be used in the elementary schools. Most of those were purchased when we first started, and we are looking at getting some up-to-date, even if it's just a couple to get them started. I believe that's about it.
Thank you. And Jamie Payno with Little Cats.
Good evening. We're looking forward to our Paths to Quality meeting. We are on pace to becoming a level 3 center, and with that, we will obtain something called On My Way Pre-K, and that's a state-funded program that provides access to high-quality programs to low-income families, and it's completely free for these families. We are looking to expand our after-school care program. I would love to see a program where we are serving, right now it's between 20 and 25 kids. I'd like to see 50 to 70 kids that we're serving, and also being able to give them a meal before they go. So that's my big vision goal, is to turn the after-school care program into a Baker's Youth Club type program for the community. So that's my big picture goal. And we're excited about expanding our infant and toddler programs in the near future. Any questions?
Thank you for all you do. Mr. Pavarnik, we have a superintendent update.
Just some updates. I think I discussed these earlier this week, but the water is completed now to both the greenhouses, the new and the existing. We are still on track for a February completion for construction trades for the kill switch in there. And I was just talking with Mrs. Snavely today about we're looking into the lighting out front of this building. It's virtually not there. So we have motions in place to light the place up out there. So for, security and for safety reasons.
Thank you. The business reports and consent agenda. You have a list in front of you, includes meeting minutes and employment actions. Can I get a motion, please, to accept the business reports and consent agenda?
I'll move that we accept the business reports and consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the business reports and consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote, and we're going to vote a little bit differently. I think it'll help Teresa out if we not only have a voice vote, but also a show of hands. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye and also raise your hand. Aye. Aye. And opposed? The motion passes. In new business, we have the approval of a one-year extension to Mr. Pavarnik's contract. Could I get a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve the extension of 1 year to the superintendent's contract.
I second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve a one-year extension to Mr. Pavarnik's contract. Is there any discussion?
I do have a little, not a lot. I know that he is working on trying to live closer. I know that with the way housing is, it's just difficult, and he does the best he can. I would like to see him more visible in the communities. Some of the things, maybe he could even join one of the Chamber of Commerce, something, because Whitko does belong to the Chamber of Commerce, probably in both towns.
And it would be nice if he could join us sometime for a chamber meeting or two. My positiveness is we have a big vision for Whitko. And to change superintendents in the middle of the road, we've done that before. And it just is difficult because all of those visions that we had all of a sudden come to a screeching halt because maybe that isn't a vision of a superintendent coming in. So, yes, I do believe we need to keep Mr. Pavarnik because he needs to take us on this journey that he's looking at right now.
Is there any other discussion?
I appreciate your comment. My concern is we're only halfway through this contract and we're already talking about an extension. I just don't know if it's wise when they're only halfway through to already be extending an additional year for any contract.
I am glad to see us do the strategic plan. I like how we address the vision and mission, and there's a lot of work to be done, and with the things that Mr. Evans has pointed out, there's some work that we need to really focus on, and I like the direction we're going right now, and I think we've got more of a plan than we've ever had. I like the building evaluations. That was a good call. I'm glad we did that.
I'll just say I do appreciate the comments. I do attend Rotaries, and the chambers are of interest, and I will do that. I do stay during the week frequently, and so, and I am actively seeking a place here. But I think that what the reason a lot of this goes on statewide and nationwide is superintendents are a revolving door, especially statewide. And I've learned through superintendent conferences that I've been to in the last year and a half is that what's most important to the big picture and most important to strategic plans and the community is knowing stability. And the stability for not only the leaders, but the stability for the community and the school system, knowing that we're all on the same page and that the stability is there, and this team is committed now, and not just contractually, but moving forward to making sure that our big pictures are our focus. This is our focus. And that's where my focus is. And the reason I'm asking this is, and again, I want to stress it to the board and to the community that I've not asked, this does not include a pay increase. Oftentimes they do. I've not asked for a pay increase. The money's fine. It's not about the money to me. It's about what we're accomplishing for our students, for our kids. And what I'm looking for is the stability and for the message to the community and to the students and to the board that we're all in this together. And I'm committed to this. My team's committed to this. And that's why I asked for this, not for free. There's no money involved here. Thank you.
I feel like we have a 5-year strategic plan that we have started, and I think it's a great idea to keep Mr. Pavarnik around to keep this strategic plan going. Obviously, we've been having the last 1 meetings we've had, like tonight, Mr. Singray and Mrs. Kellogg came up and talked, and that's part of our strategic plan. So we want to keep that going, and Mr. Pavarnik has spearheaded that. I think it's important to keep him around and keep that going. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. And those opposed? Motion passes 4-1. Moving on to 7.2, we have the approval of the cell phone allowance list, which includes adding Mr. Holsapple. Do I have a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve a cell phone allowance to Mr. Holsapple.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the cell phone allowance list, which includes adding Mr. Hallsoppel. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
And those opposed? The motion passes. And 7.3, we have the approval of the Dean of Students Assistant to the Athletic Director job description, which we discussed in our work session last week. Could I get a motion for that, please?
I make a motion that we approve the Dean of Students and Assistant to Athletic Director job description.
I second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the Dean of Students Assistant to the Athletic Director job description. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like you to touch on how this is kind of a change of a current job description. It's not a new hire, just to make sure the public's clear on
Sure,
what
it
we're doing.
is, right now, we have the position of assistant to the athletic director. I want to reiterate, it's not assistant AD, it's an assistant to the athletic director. And we had a position that was a part-time, we had two part-time positions in our alternative school. One of those positions was vacant, so we used that money and another position that was an assistant to the AD that existed at the high school. Those were both part-time. So we used both of those to create one full-time position. And that position consisted of an individual that spent half the day in the alternative lab, the other half the day at the high school assisting Mr. Singry. The other part-time position in the alternative school left, which allowed us to bring in a full-time licensed special ed teacher to help in our alternative lab to facilitate that, which was very important. So we no longer needed any part-time positions in there, so we took the other part-time position and we created it, we put it with this one, you create a Dean of Students position and the assistant to the AD, because the high school, Mr. Maurer and Mrs. Evans are in dire need of assistance down there and supervision and so forth in the building. And so by using existing monies we had, kind of through attrition, if you will, we combined those positions into one position, using that money for one position. So it gives us a much-needed position in the high school, junior, senior high school, and it does not cost the district any more money.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote on the approval of the Dean of Students and Assistant to the Athletic Director job description. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
And those opposed? The motion passes. In 7.4, we have the approval of the annual field trips along with the following one-time field trips. I won't go ahead and read them as you have them in front of you. Can I get a motion for that, please?
I move that we approve the annual field trips along with the one-time field trips as presented in 7.4.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the annual field trips along with the field trips presented in 7.4. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? The motion passes. In old business, we have the approval of Board Policy 5610, which is a revision regarding expulsion appeals. This is the second and final reading of this policy. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we approve policy 5610 regarding expulsion appeals.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve Board Policy 5610, revision regarding expulsion appeals. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
And those opposed? The motion passes. In 8.2, we have the approval of Board Policies 164.4, 164.5, 164.6, and 167.1. These regard school board members' electronic meeting participation. This is the second and final reading of this policy. Can I get a motion, please?
I move we accept approve the policies as outlined in section 8.2.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the policies as outlined in 8.2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
And those opposed? The motion passes. Do you have any miscellaneous administrative items tonight, Mr. Kavarnik?
I don't. I thank the board for your vote of confidence in me and extending my contract. I want to officially welcome Deb Thomas down there as our new board member for your first official board meeting. And Scott, congratulations and welcome you in your new elected position as secretary.
Thank you.
So we're off to a good start, and we got a lot of good things coming our way. Thank you.
Could I, there was one teacher that is leaving us, Andrew Lehman. Andy Lehman has been a very good friend of mine for many years. He's been in the corporation for 30 years. He is the father of the little girl who we do Kate's Cart for in all the hospitals. And I know that, that it was a sad time that he had to leave. He told me that he will never find a school family like he found in Whitko Middle School. So I think I'm sad to see him go, but I know that it probably is maybe closer to home.
Thank you, Georgia.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've got a question. It's kind of tied in with the old business, but since we have a new board member, and I know when I got on the board, I had no idea what Neola was. Could you, we talked about it a little bit at the work session, and I thought maybe it would be better if you could expand on that a little bit, on who they are and what they do for us.
Sure, that's good. So schools, all public entities run on policy. The question is sometimes where does that policy come from? Sometimes the perception's out there that policy is just made up. Let's create a policy that we can do this or do that, and that's not how it works. Policy is all based on Indiana code. And for policy to be viable and to be protective, it has to be updated on a consistent basis after every legislative session. Neola is an organization that works with public entities, basically public schools, that oversees all the Neola policies that school systems, public school systems operate on. They also are available to contract out to private schools and so forth as well. And each school system has a district rep that we have as well. And they keep track of all of our policy for us to make sure our policy is all updated. And why is that important? It's important because the school system gets sued. The first thing the attorney is going to ask the superintendent is there a policy on it and is it updated? If the answer to either of those two questions is no, especially the updated policy, then that means you're going to settle your lawsuit because you're going to lose because you're not updating your policy. So what Neola does is through each legislative session, they track all the Indiana codes, the Indiana laws, and they make sure that all our codes are updated pursuant to any changes or amendments that are made in a legislative session that might have an effect on a particular Neola policy. Now, they're rarely large changes, mostly semantics, mostly wording, and they give you choices, A, B, or C, or so forth, you know. And it'll say, here's the new language from the Indiana code. Which one of these do you want to choose to have yours amended to? And Jim Dermody is our rep. He comes down to here to our district. He spends hours in office with Mrs. Carano and I with our laptops open going through all those. And that happens in the spring. It'll happen this spring after the session is over. And then we bring those to you guys like this to make sure that those codes are updated because the board is in charge of the policy. That's what you do. So we look through all that policy and we bring those recommendations to you to choose from and so forth. And that's what these are. These are the updates of those. And the updates are the most important part of that, because if they're not updated, then they're not any good. And when I started here as superintendent, and Mrs. Carano and I started together, I hired Teresa because we didn't have one at that position filled at that time. Jim Dermody contacted us in his first meeting and said that Whitko is severely behind on your Neola policies, clear back to 2019. And a few of those policies were very large. Some of them were Title IX. They were big policies that, quite frankly, had something happened in this district, we would have been in trouble with litigation. And so Mrs. Carano put a lot of work into working with Jim Dermody, a lot of hours in the office. Various members of this board have been in my office reading through and reviewing and making a selection on amendments to make sure that they're all updated. So what it basically is it's an organization that keeps those policies, Indiana coded policies, updated for us to make sure that we have our amendments in place correctly and that you guys have your options chosen for which policy option that you want to select.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there anything else to be brought before the board? Anybody? All right, a little bit of miscellaneous items. We have the next school board work session on Wednesday, February 8th at 4 o'clock in the tap room here in the Career Academy. The next school board meeting is Monday, February 13th at 6:30 in the lecture room right here. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Do you have a question? I'm sorry? I can't hear what you're saying.
He wanted to do a public comment.
Oh. Okay.
What's that?
Can we let him speak?
Oh, I'll go talk. Teresa's going to ask.
Okay.
He obviously didn't.
I feel bad they've been sitting there the whole time, though, if that's what they were waiting on.